Okay, let's go. So can you start with presenting yourself a little?
Um, I guess I'll go by Thomas. Um, yeah, I mean, as far as what I do, I currently a psychology student, and I'm a student full time. I enjoy understanding people's behavior, why we do the things that we do. It's really interesting, um, and just philosophical topics as well. So they kind of intermingle. I would say that's like the cross section of like almost everything I'm interested in is why people do what they do and like what is true. So anything that has to do with that is basically what I spend most of my time thinking about and doing and what I study. Outside of that, we get like, personal like hobbies or whatever. But yeah.
Interesting. I'm gonna ask more question about it, but first I'm curious about your age, if you want to share, and where are you from?
I'm 33. I'm from Arizona, the United States.
All right.
It's currently in the longest heat streak ever. I think over 110 degrees. It's been like 3 weeks in a row where every single day has been over 110. So
Hmm.
yeah,
Yeah.
pretty brutal. But
Yeah. So you said you're trying to understand why people are doing what they do, and I'm curious about what is your did you learn did you like did you came to a conclusion, or why do you think people are doing what they are doing?
well, that's a huge question. It's hard to answer unless you have a specific behavior you want to explain. And I mean, the answer is no. I've not come to a conclusion because there's a lot of limitations that comes with psychology. I mean, for one, you can't be in someone else's mind, so you can ask them. There's a lot of limitations. Um, but what I'm mostly interested in is like resilience. So why? That's what I want to understand. Do people why do some people struggle in the face of adversity and they develop complexes or whatever PTSD, and why do other people not do that? So what are the differences between those two kinds of people? Is there some sort of personality factor? Is there some sort of environmental factor? And if we can figure it out, like how do we instill that in people? Like is there something you can do like in a clinic that can instill adversity? Because I'm very much a proponent of the idea that a life without hardship is not a life worth living. So I'm not for creating a life that's real comfortable and easy and comfortable. Um, I think adversity is a good thing, and striving to be great at things is good, and that's going to take a lot of hard work and a lot of failure. And I want to instill resilience in people to take on these challenges, and when they fail, to not be totally discouraged by it.
Would you consider yourself resilient?
I'm becoming resilient. It's I'm definitely way more resilient now than I used to be. I think that's one reason why I'm interested in it is because I've seen how unresilient I have been in the past, and it takes a lot of work. I would say um, I'm getting there. Let's put it that way.
Hmm. Like, how do you like what makes you say that you were not resilient? Like like what would be something that is not resilience? Like getting into depression?
It's I think it's just like a felt sense of I don't know, just I would get overwhelmed easily. I think that's the best way to put it. Like if you lack resilience, you are very easily overwhelmed, and a lot of that is thoughts. And I mean, how I've understood it is just thoughts in my brain. So I'll have a feeling about something, and I'll generate a thought to explain that feeling, and it'll be, this is where like cognitive behavioral therapy comes in, where it explains these like cognitive distortions. So I'll like catastrophize, like I'll have a bad feeling. Like here's just I'll just give you a personal example, because I've dealt with this. I've talked with people about it. There was like literally a time where, I live in an apartment. I had agoraphobia to some extent, to the point where, I mean, if I really had to, I could go and do something. So it's not like my life was totally dysfunctional, but if I could put it off, I would. So like a real concrete example is like just, I have to go throw out the trash, and at an apartment complex, you have to go walk outside. It's not like you have a trash can like at a house or whatever. You got to go out in the parking lot. Like just the thought of doing that, like gave me severe anxiety because I thought something bad was going to happen. Couldn't tell you what was going to happen, but yeah, and that's because I had this whatever the history is. I have this feeling something bad's going to happen, and then I generate all these thoughts about. Sometimes I come up with a catastrophe or black and white thinking or a lot of those things. So,
like, what would be the point of being resilient? Is it for happiness or efficiency?
I think it's just to be like the person you want to be, whatever that means for you. But that's gonna work. I mean, you're gonna face adversity if you want to be great at something, or you want to do whatever you want to do. It's gonna be hard. You have to do things that are uncomfortable, and you have to face your fears. Basically, you have to face these things you've made up in your brain and not let them control you. It's like if something ambiguous happens, those are the worst things, because then you can generate all kinds of stuff. If you're not sure if something was say someone said something, it was ambiguous what they meant. It's really easy to construe that into something negative. Like, see, this is evidence why, people don't like me or whatever. And then it's really easy to just avoid all of that. And if you fall into your, the beliefs that you have about yourself, like I'm a bad person or whatever, you're going to generate all these cognitive distortions based off of that. You're going to have black and white thinking or whatever, like I said. Yeah.
So how would you do to, or how do people, what can people do to be more resilient?
So I'm just studying it. I'm trying to get into a research lab at my university that's studying this. But from what I've understood, there's a lot of like research on like war veterans. Like one of the most important factors that determines whether someone, for example, like post-traumatic stress disorder is a kind of feeling overwhelmed. And one of the most important things is having like a support network. So if you soldiers that came home from war, that had friends and family that could support them and, talk to them about it or be involved in their community, they were much less likely to develop post-traumatic stress disorder than people that are just left on their own. So it seems like community is a big factor in keeping people resilient. I guess I'm kind of equating like resiliency with developing post-traumatic stress disorder.
Do you think that relationship, like we have less relationships and less healthy relationships than in the past, in the society we live in?
So you're asking if relationships were worse in the past?
Yeah, like I feel like right now in the modern society, it's it's a little bit complicated to make bounds and to connect with people sometimes. Like there is no free. I mean, there is a few free places. There is some, but I think there is less than in the past. Like you don't spend much time outside doing nothing. But maybe I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, I agree. I feel like it was easier in the past. So I guess I would say I agree with you said, but I feel like the internet especially has atomized people to the point where um, people don't go out as often. It's hard to make friends. I mean, I've complained before about people online and my theories about why I feel like those don't really work. Um, yeah, I mean, I feel like
Yeah.
since the internet, people have had less reason to go out. So I mean, I agree. I think we should have those places. If I had, if I had the money, that's what I would do. I would love to have like a public place that people can come and just like hang out and talk, and like you don't need to, you know, buy anything. It's just a place where you can talk to your fellow. There's no place like that, right? Like
Yeah.
someone mentioned that like I don't know if that's a uniquely American thing because
No.
I live in America and that's the way it is. But
Same in Europe.
I think it. Okay, well, I've heard from other people that it's more common in Europe to have what's called a third place. So in America, there's the first place where you spend most of your time is at home, and you're not meeting people there, and then you have the second place, which is your work. Um, and that's not you don't really build community. Sure, you can make some friends, but there's no. I guess in the past there used to be a third place where it's like outside of work and home, I have somewhere else to go. Like I don't know if that's a public library or some public place where you can just hang out or a town center or something like that. Yeah, all that stuff's kind of we don't really have those anymore, and I think that's a huge problem.
Yeah, so people are more isolated, and so there would be a link with mental health and like people because people are more isolated, they are more likely to have mental disorder. Is it is it right?
That's, I mean, I think so. I think it's pretty clear that we have a loneliness epidemic.
Hmm.
That's like the biggest public health concern right now. There's a lot of actual physical health problems that come with I mean, being lonely is like as bad as um, being sedentary. Like it's terrible. So not just on the psychological level, but yeah, that's it's a big problem, and I just feel like no one's doing. It's such a huge problem though, because you can't. It's not like one person, like Dr. K, can fix this problem because it's a local problem, right? So you need all this stuff in like every town across America. Um, it's just a huge, massive problem. I don't know what to do about it.
Yeah, because everyone need someone in particular, like a personal, like yeah, we everyone needs their own friends, so there is not one solution. Yeah, it's complicated.
Yeah, and the problem with that is it's really, really difficult to make friends outside of school. And then
Yeah,
people turn to work. But I don't think work's a great place to do that, honestly. But
no, yeah,
so if you don't have a lot of friends or you drift apart, that's pretty common. You have high school friends or college friends. And then when you're, a couple years out, you don't have school that binds you. Maybe you're just kind of a little bit different and you don't talk. There's a lot of people, they just drift away from friends. And then now it's like they're in this impossible situation to try and make new friends, and it's just super difficult as an adult because there's also a lot of people that they have families. Like there's a lot of adults that have a wife or a husband and kids, and they're done. They have their schedules full, so you can't be friends with them. So um,
yeah.
I don't know. It's a hard problem.
In Europe, you would go in places like parks, like outside, and pubs. Like the pubs used to be like the place for mix, like social diversity and social mix. But yeah, you have to pay for a drink.
Yeah, I feel like if you just want to like a community, it'd probably work in like a small town in America. But I mean, I feel like if you do that in the city, I could be totally wrong. Is I don't go to bars, I don't drink, I don't have a good time, so I don't do that. But I feel
Mm.
like that's for like dating or picking up people,
Mm.
like bars in the city. That's what that's for.
Yeah, it's not very meaningful or not very deep. So, would you go like do you have parks like in USA or in your state? You can meet people in
Yeah, we
park. Yeah.
actually we do have parks. We have there's a lot of little um not we so we have a lot of national parks, but like a park in like your neighborhood. We have little ones. There's around me. There's little lake areas with a little trail or whatever. It's like a square mile. It's pretty small, but there's a few of those around. But it is like half the year. It's just no one goes outside because it's too damn hot out here.
Mm,
So
yeah. But
it's one of the downsides.
people used to meet in these parks. Like, is it a place to hang on or it's not? Because
Um, I don't know. I see like groups online will like, oh, we're gonna go for a walk in the park. Come join us. But um,
okay.
I don't spend a lot of time at the parks. I don't know the social atmosphere there.
Think about Amsterdam. I know in this city there is quite many parks, and if you go there in the end of the afternoon, there is a like it's full of people, and you can meet people in this place. So I think that's a really nice thing. But yeah, anyway. So that's very interesting. I mean, I am very interested in psychology as well. And I will ask more question later if we have time. Um, I skipped one of the first question I used to ask is how do you feel right now?
Um, I don't know. I feel fine. I'm a little nervous because I know some of the things you're interested in. So you said there was going to be surprises. Um, I don't know.
Hmm.
You're a little spooky like that sometimes. But I'm ready. Give me your questions.
No, it's gonna be all right. It's not. I mean, anyway, yeah. I wanted to ask, like, something I want to talk about is what are your worries? Like, what are you worries about? Are you worried about in general? Is there something?
In general, that's a really, really broad question. There's so many ways I could go. I
Hmm.
guess we'll just go in all the ways. Um, I guess you go real practical. You could like I worry about like climate change and real world problems. But I also worry about like failing. Um, I worry about getting things wrong. It's kind of the same thing. But I spend a lot of time worrying about that too.
Hmm. What would be the first worry? What the biggest?
Oh, I mean, I worry about the stuff that I can control. So, like climate change, I can't do anything about that.
Hmm.
So, or I can do very little. Um, so, like, I worry about my life and how I can make my life better so I can help people. So, like, my I focus on my worry about failure and where that comes from and like why that bothers me so much. So yeah, I spent a lot of time focusing on things that worry me, like I guess personally.
Mm. Is it more related to work or like? mm, I didn't.
Um,
I don't know if you have if you're in a relationship. Like, do you don't have kids, right? Yeah.
no.
Yeah. Okay. That's not a
Um,
worry for you.
that I don't have kids.
Um, More like if you're looking for relationships or like a romantic.
Um, I'm not right now because I'm pretty busy with school. I'm trying to be more social in general. So like if that happens, great. But I'm not like I don't go on like dating apps or anything. But I am trying to make a concerted effort to go out and find people because it's a broader problem for me because uh, I've lost some close friends in the past year or two, so my social circle is pretty small. So now I got to rebuild all of that. Um, so yeah, I mean, I guess I worry in general about it.
So what would be the first, like if you have to say one worry, like what are you the most worried about?
Um, it's I mean, yeah, it's probably just it's kind of complex, like kind of just fucking up or being wrong or screwing something up.
Mm.
And that's such a general thing. And that's why it's such a big problem because it applies to so many different situations. So, like, I feel like for some people, when something happens, let's just make it concrete, like you have some sort of social interaction and it doesn't go well, like it just turns out bad. I feel like some people can just like laugh about it, like, man, that didn't turn out good. And they see the humor in it. Um, but it's very hard for me to do that because I take responsibility for it and I feel bad about it. And, I feel like a failure or I should have done something different or whatever. So that's like the biggest thing that worries me.
Interesting. Yeah, you take a lot of responsibility.
I like to think so, yeah. Um,
Like oh,
Especially recently, yeah. There's definitely things where it's like, yeah, you gotta, stop stop, blaming other people and like this is your problem to fix. Some of those are not true though. Like I said, like how think when you deal with other people, that's not always the case. It can be, but when you're talking with someone or you have a relationship with someone, that takes two people. So it's not like all my fault if something it doesn't work out. So I can't be taking the blame for everything when you're
mm-hmm.
dealing with relationships with other people.
Mm-hmm. Another question. What are you the most proud of?
Probably, I would say probably just my determination. Just never like when I want something, I just don't give up. Sometimes I do, but like a good example. Okay, it might be some people might be wondering, oh, you're 33 years old, and it sounds like you're in you're studying an undergraduate.
Mm.
How'd that happen? Well, I've been trying to go to school for like a decade, and I would start and stop, and I'd get a class here. I would drop 4 classes, and then take a class and get a C because I just had my mental health was a disaster. Um, and actually, this ties in. Ever since this is a big long story, but
Mm-hmm.
um, ever since I knew, basically since I got out of high school, I knew there's something not right. Okay, I gotta talk to somebody, and no one pushed me. None of my parents did that. Like I was, basically agoraphobic, wouldn't go outside, like played video games all day long, and no one was like, "You should see somebody." I did all that. I'm the one that all of the progress I've made on my mental health was totally up to me. I did everything, and it got to the point where now, I guess sometime a year and a half ago, I started taking classes. Boom, just get straight A's. And it's been like a year and a half now. I've gotten an A at every class. I don't drop any classes. I don't get C's. And it's because I just never gave up doing that. And I just continuously worked on my mental health over the course of like a decade to get to where I'm at. And now I'm somewhere solid enough that I can go to school and make something of myself.
I can see why you're proud of this, and I I relate to this. I think it's something people might not realize, and I think it's really nice that you're aware about it. Though,
Yeah, I get frustrated when I hear people, you know, they just don't try. That's the biggest thing. Uh, well, I don't know if that's off topic, but yeah.
hmm. um, so you said like you don't worry about what you're not controlling, and this made me think about stoicism. So I wonder if you identify to a, a philosophy school or a philosophy, a specific one? What's
I don't know that I would ascribe myself as a Stoic. I'm definitely influenced by Stoicism. Absolutely. I've not read enough Stoicism, and there's probably some things I'd be critical of Stoicism about, but yeah, that is definitely a Stoic kind of mantra of not being affected by things that are outside of my control. All you can control is your response to things, and yeah, I think it's really easy to like get caught up in like worrying about climate change, and it's I'm not saying don't worry about it at all. It's a problem, but when you start to think about it, like I can't do anything. I can vote. I can go vote, and that's about it. Like whether I throw a can in the blue bin into the black bin isn't going to make zero difference. So just don't sweat the small stuff. Um,
Mhm.
yeah, I don't know. It's
And any other anything else than stoicism, like Buddhism, or well, it's more like
yeah.
accept.
I mean, a lot of that shared in Buddhism. That's this. They have the same kind of concept. I think that's kind of like more like detachment. Um, I do like Buddhism because I don't think that. I guess I would say that like I am spiritual, but I don't believe in like a God that like has a name. I don't believe it's like Jesus is the one God. And that's what I like about Buddhism because like Buddha, I don't know all the details, but I don't think he's like a god. He's an enlightened being, and like people worship him, but they don't worship him like we worship like Jesus or something else. And I like that about it, that it's not doesn't have this like big deity that's got a name that's going to judge you or whatever.
So you think there is no God, or are you hesitate, or are you not sure? Like, is it as agnostic or atheist?
I think if anyone is honest, they're agnostic. You don't know. Even if you're an atheist, you don't know for certain. You can say, I don't have any evidence to believe it. Sure, you can say that. And people that believe, they just have that's why it's called faith. But faith isn't knowledge. So if anyone says they're not agnostic, they haven't thought about it. You can have a belief one way or the other, but I don't know. I used to be like a hardcore atheist. And if you press me in like in a philosophical discussion, I'm probably an atheist. But maybe something interesting about me is that I've created a division between like what is true about reality and what is true for me. So if in like a scientific sense or if I'm having a philosophical argument, I'm not going to be arguing in the favor of God. But I do think it's possible, and I don't have a really well-formed opinion about it yet, but I do think it's useful for people to have a sense of a higher self. So you don't have to call it God. You can call it, some people just call it the self, your higher self that encompasses all of your other parts. If there's a part of me, and I know this is kind of like esoteric religion. I forgot which one it's called, if it's Gnosticism or Hermeticism, that believes that I find this appealing, but that all notions of God are basically different faces of this, like, whatever, like on a cube of God. So like, Muhammad is just one face on a cube. Jesus is another, and that cube is what is God, and they're all just different manifestations of the one God. I like that interpretation, but I don't know if there's problems with that or not. But yeah.
Mm-hmm. So God would be something like higher consciousness, or do you think there is a higher consciousness? I don't remember what you said exactly. But
Well, one conception is like your higher self. So like your most, like, you can think of like yourself as, so God can be like wholeness or oneness, and that gets real abstract real fast. But so you can apply that to the universe, and you could, whatever the wholeness of the universe is God, or you can apply that to the self, right? And the higher self, or the God within you, is the totality of the self that encompasses everything about you, right? So that the part of you that understands everything about, why you're, like, if you split yourself into different parts, like my angry self, or the part that's upset, the part that gets hurt, the higher self is the one that understands all those and like integrates it into one thing. So you can have that view of like God.
do you think we need we need to believe in something, like in a higher, like in God, or in a religion, or
I don't think you need to. I do think for some people it is helpful. I think for some people that is, part of me wants to reduce God to a psychological phenomenon. And I'm not opposed to doing that. I think Carl Jung mentioned that. I should have probably brought up that quote if I knew we were going to go here. But that was like Carl Jung's basically idea that God is, like, a lot of religious imagery and stuff reflects the psyche, and that's what it means. And God is the ultimate self. And any sort of metaphorical whatever about what God, is just something reflected about humans.
I see what you mean. It's interesting to analyze belief with a as psychological way. Um, okay, so you mentioned climate change. I wonder, how do you imagine the future?
Um, the most likely outcome, I don't know. I waffle back and forth, and you can't predict the future, yada yada yada. But probably like a slow decline into deindustrialization.
Hmm.
Unless something big happens, or we pull our heads out of our collective ass. Um, it just seems like our strategy right now is just like we'll adapt to it, but you can only adapt so much. Um, so and climate change is going to exacerbate like geopolitical issues. And I think countries are going to become more isolated. So this whole system we have where everything is globally interconnected, I think that's breaking down. Um, Definitely with China, right? We have all, especially with the computer chips. So the U.S. government is funding like massive spending to onshore chip manufacturing because, well, we can't be dependent on China for chips because it's national security. I think there's a ton of stuff that everything's going back onshore. We're de-globalizing. Um, yeah, and what the
Yeah,
consequences of that are going to be is, it's hard to say.
yeah. Like, what in the lifestyle will change? Like,
Oh, it's going down. The Especially for Americans, I think a lot of why our standard of living is so high is because we get cheap labor from China and other countries. So if you have to onshore all this stuff, the price is going to go up. If you have to onshore all of your, energy manufacturing, the price of energy is going to go up. So everyone's going to get poorer. Um, yeah.
and
So
do you think, do you feel like people are aware about it around you?
no, they just focus on what's right in front of them. They like, I got to get to work. I got my kids crying, or like they pay attention to like inflation, like, oh, gas is real expensive. Like they just care about what's happening today. They don't, they're not thinking about what's happening, 10, 20 years from now. Some people are, but most people, they're just trying to get through their life one day at a time.
Hmm. So, what would make the world a better place? Like, what would make this future better?
I don't know. It's the $1 million question, huh? Um,
There is no right or wrong answer.
yeah, it's a hard thing to even come up with something. I'd have to think for a minute about that. I think the biggest thing is just um, the political polarization. Just it fucking ruins everything. You can't have a conversation. It's all cult mindset. You get in your echo chambers, and people live in two different realities. It cannot function as long as people are constantly divided upon political lines, and everything is political. Then nothing can get done.
Hmm.
So at some point, like someone, this is like one of the things I've always said. Dr. K has said this, but he stole it from me. I'm claiming that at some point, someone has to give um, like charity or understanding or forgiveness to someone who doesn't deserve it.
Hmm.
That has to happen. So you hate this person or whatever. Well, someone's gonna have to like get out of their like, well, you hurt me and then I hurt you back, and then someone's gonna say enough. I forgive you. I want to start over. But no one wants to do that because when there's power involved, then, that's where the whole cult dynamics take over, and they enforce people to, stick with the hive mind, and just even saying like, I want to hear the other side out. It's like you're out of the group, you're out of the cult, or they're going to pressure you, or they're going to put you through a struggle session to sufficiently get you back on with the program.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I see what you mean. Wait a second. Oh yeah, I wanted to ask. I'm curious. Do you have immigration in US? Immigration issue? I think you because it's
I think. Go ahead.
Oh, I was just gonna say that in Europe it's getting a problem, and I wonder how is the situation in US.
So I don't follow that part of politics, partially because
Mm-hmm.
I don't care, but I understand other people do care, so it's worth understanding. I do. There is obviously a problem um, at the southern border. A lot of people from South America want to come, and the problem is we have a big problem because our official immigration system, like you fill out, the paperwork route, it sucks and it takes forever, and no one wants to do that. So it's just easier to come across illegally. Like, okay, so they deport me, whatever. Like,
But is there a lot of people coming, or not so much? Like in your city, can you see migrants or not much?
well, I mean,
Yeah, everyone is.
there are a lot of immigrants. Yeah, I don't
Yeah.
know if they're like here illegally or not, but
Mm-hmm.
there's a lot of people. There's a lot of Hispanics here for sure
Mm-hmm.
because they do a lot of the work that none of us want to do. Like in every neighborhood where, because there's a bunch of grass in my neighborhood that's all cut by people from Mexico or whatever. They don't speak English, so all those jobs are done by those people. I'm sure anything that's grown here is picked by
Mm-hmm.
um, usually Mexicans or other people, but.
So you said there would be a slow change in the future, and I wonder how do you imagine it? Like, what about the car? Like, if the oil price keep rising, how are we gonna move? And how, like, if the weather keep warming up, uh, do you think you're gonna stay, or are you thinking about these things?
Am I going to stay in Arizona because of global warming?
Would it be? Do you think it would be a problem?
I mean, yeah, it is. It's going to be a problem. I don't really have a gas problem because I don't commute, and I
Mm-hmm.
own a hybrid, so it's pretty gas. I don't have a big giant SUV. Um, I'm sorry. What was the question again?
If you think that it's gonna be like it's gonna keep warming up in your Arizona, right? You said, yeah.
Oh, yeah. I mean, it already is. Like I think I'm still currently in. Like we broke the record for the most amount of days over 110 Fahrenheit,
Yeah.
and we're still going. So
So
yeah, it's really hot. It's only gonna get hotter, and we have a massive water shortage problem. So I don't know how we're gonna fix that problem.
yeah.
That's why I don't want to buy a house here. I rent because if water rationing comes, who the hell wants to buy a house where like you have a water ration? Like
Yeah. So you already thought about moving?
yeah, I kind of stuck here because
Yeah.
I don't want to.
I mean in the future, not now.
Yeah, I haven't thought about it. that far. I'm getting through school because I go to a state school. I don't want to go out of state, and I guess I'll have to establish my career and then think about. I mean, ideally, I would love to. I would love to move somewhere up north, but yeah. I mean, outside of that, Arizona is pretty nice. There's no crazy weather. There's no hurricanes. There's no tornadoes. There's no earthquakes. It's just hot sometimes.
Who are the people in Arizona?
I don't know. I'd say they're pretty friendly compared to other places I've been, like California and New York.
Okay, friendly. I had the same experience in USA. I was surprised compared to Europe. People are smiling.
Oh yeah, it's a big thing to smile and like look people in the eye. It's kind of an American thing.
What do you think about your country? Or do you have an opinion? You don't have to have an opinion.
I do. It's mixed. There are bad things and there are good things. I feel like America's in a like really tough position to be like the global leader. I don't know if someone else could do a better job. It's real easy. On the one hand, it's real easy when someone's out doing stuff to criticize, like I could do it better or whatever. That's not to say that those criticisms aren't legitimate, but it's like there are a lot of things I like about America. I do like the fact that we are freedom-loving people. We don't like, in general, the government coming in and telling us what to do. I feel like that's very different. That's one way in which we're very different from other countries like Europe, and there's a lot of great things about Europe, and the faith in the like technocrats, like the smart people, because I think generally people in Europe are in government are smart, but there's also limitations. I think that smart people, they're overconfident sometimes, especially when they have power and they make bad decisions. So I do. Probably the thing I like the most is that it's supposed to like limit. The whole purpose of this country is to limit the power of government to just what's required and not anymore. And a lot of people seem to love that. That's why a lot of people come here. Mm-hmm. But as far as like criticisms, I mean, there's a lot of criticisms. It's hard to even go in and list them all, but there are things I think that America has done that has made. We've done things to benefit ourselves at the expense of other countries.
Mm-hmm. You're not the only ones.
Yeah, every country. That's the thing. Mm-hmm. No country that doesn't have blood on their hands. So,
yeah.
Yeah.
Do you identify to a political party? I don't know the word exactly.
The political parties in America are absolutely total dog shit. Because I don't know, there's a lot more people that are becoming disaffected. So we basically have Democrats and Republicans. And I feel like they're both insane in their own way. And there are things that I like about Democratic proposals. Probably the biggest thing is like the cultural stuff. Just, we're going to get in the culture war stuff here about being woke and all this stuff, and how kind of ties into something earlier about being resilient and not constantly interpreting everything as people attacking you and being a victim. And that's probably my biggest thing with people on the left is they just idolize being a victim. And I don't think really anyone in America is oppressed to the point where we have to have some sort of class-based system to fix this problem. But as far as like economic issues, like I'm for universal health care like you have in Europe. I want like a ton of government spending on infrastructure. I'm open to the idea of like a universal basic income, but I'm also very much like a constitutionalist, I guess you could say. Like I'm very pro free speech. So, typically not on the side of the cancelers. I'm pretty big for the Second Amendment. So I think, owning a gun to be able to defend yourself, including quote unquote assault rifles, is a right that all Americans have. And so I'm not for banning any of those.
Do you vote? Do you vote?
I've just started voting. I voted in the last 2 elections.
All right. It's been 50 minutes. I think we can conclude now and ask the last question. I mean, I have two last questions to finish. First one would be, which book influenced you the most? You can give me 3 of them.
Oh, 3 of them. The first one I know immediately. It's The Jungle by Upton Sinclair. I think that's what initially made me like a liberal as far as politics. I read that in high school. It's basically a story of an immigrant that comes to America in like 1905 or something like that. Or maybe it's like 1800s. Anyways, he just shows the brutal life of an immigrant, and he's working in a slaughterhouse and the horrible conditions, and all this horrible shit happens to him, basically. It's just kind of showing the plight of poor people in America at that time. And I think I still have that. I still, that still informs my politics today. Like, I guess you go back to politics, but I'm very much like, I guess you would call me a class reductionist, meaning I don't care about your oppressed status of whatever. Like, if you're rich, I just don't care. You've made it. So I'm not concerned about your problems or your problems at this point. So, but if you're poor, yeah, I want to help you. We should have social services. And I think that is what is instilled or influenced my political thinking was that book. It very much advocates for socialism. And I used to be kind of a socialist, but I'm kind of pulled away from that. I understand a lot of why capitalism functions the way it does, even though it's not a perfect system. But that would be number one.
You can stop there if you don't
Okay.
have. I want to ask as well. Is there something you want to talk about? A topic you want to? Anything you want to talk about? I don't know if you want to continue.
I guess I could. Here's a good synthesis of I think a lot of the things that I believe. I have like a framework I will share. And it kind of makes sense of who I am as a person. And maybe some other people might find something useful about it. But so I have this like 3 main ideas when it comes to like self-defense basically is how I view it in 3 different domains. And these are 3 different things that I advocate for. So the first thing would be being able to like handle being persuaded by other people, or like defending yourself from bullshit. Persuasion can be a good thing. It might be trying to persuade you of something good. But like the way that you can protect yourself so you're not getting duped by people or whatever is like, you read things, you read books, you watch videos that, give you information. You go to school and learn facts about the world. So when someone says something, you're like, you can at least like, I don't know, that sounds like bullshit. I don't know if I'm going to believe you. Right. So you're kind of defending your mind. So that's why I think like education is super important. Like the next area is like the emotional. This is why I'm a big proponent of therapy in general. That's why I want to help people, is to defend yourself against like emotional manipulation. And this can tie into like, information like propaganda very much plays off your emotions and your biases, like being aware of these biases, not being manipulated through guilt or whatever by people, learning to say no. Like, I'm not doing something because I don't want to, right? It's like setting boundaries. That ties into another fundamental thing is just like, I think so much of mental health and just living a good life is understanding who you are. If you, as the kids say, get based, you understand who you are, then like, I don't need, your approval. I can say no, and that's totally fine. I'm not going to be manipulated. I'm going to do what I want to do. I'm an autonomous person. So in that general area, so I think like therapy or just learning, how to be, I guess you could say, confident, or being able to tell people no, because a lot of people will have that problem. And then the last one is, physical protection. And that's why I'm a big proponent of firearms, because, there's a famous quote that God created man and Colt made them equal, meaning the guy that created the gun made all men equal, because it doesn't matter how big and strong someone is. If I've got a gun, then that doesn't matter. And I think it's like the ultimate tool to equalize the physical playing field. You cannot physically coerce me if, I have a gun to defend myself. And if people don't like guns, I think, being in shape or doing, jujitsu or whatever people want to do, I think that's really important. So that's kind of like my 3 ideas, like education, learning boundaries or therapy or understanding yourself, and being able to defend yourself physically, whether it's with a gun or through some other means.
I like this a lot. It's so interesting. You kind of answered the last question I will ask. Is an advice for the younger generation, like a message in a bottle?
Yeah, it comes from one of my favorite songs. It's this band Gunship. When you grow up, your heart dies. Anyway, there's a lot of positive messages in there, but basically it's just like, don't give up on your dreams. Pursue them. Don't fear failure. And if you can do those things, you have a good life. And don't give up, basically.
All right. Thank you, Thomas.
Yeah, it was fun. Thanks for having me on.